And we're live. Use some kind of a support to get this under control, support the immune system if there's a history. But then some people come in, they don't have a history and they just have some symptoms because chronic Lyme does overlap a little bit. You're not going to have as much of the fever and chills, but you're going to have fatigue. You're going to have joint pain, muscle pain, a lot of the cognitive issues, a lot of mood stuff, a lot of headaches, a lot of heart rhythm, heart rate stuff. But let's face it, you could have adrenal issues. You could have chronic gut issues that now create malabsorption, gut permeability, leaky gut, which could exacerbate autoimmune symptoms. You could throw in some mold issue in there, mycotoxins in the home due to water damage, and it becomes a hot mess because then you don't know whether you're coming or going. So if we're dealing with early Lyme and there's a history and we can see that, even if we have a bullseye rash or not, we're going to treat herbally no matter what. We're also going to send that tick in if we can. So always save your tick, wrap it in some tape, send it to one of those labs that I mentioned, either tick test, ticktest.com or tickreport.com. We'll put the links down below of some good labs that you can send it to analyze it. But I'm treating no matter what. Remember 2 summers ago, my wife got it and we talked about it. You're like, dude, just treat for 2 months. Just treat no matter what. And we did that.
Yeah, astragalus is going to be key in the very beginning. So if you get a new tick bite, astragalus, and this is not medical advice, we're not treating you. This doesn't establish a doctor-patient relationship. However, if you get bit by a tick, educational purposes only, 3 grams of astragalus, 3 grams, that's 3,000 milligrams. Most of the time you can get astragalus root, 500 milligrams. So do the math, that's 6 pills a day. You would take 3 grams of astragalus for about a month. And the goal there is to ramp up the immune system in a way to not allow Lyme to become chronic. See, in the conventional world, which we need to bring this up now, in the conventional world, you're going to do antibiotics, doxycycline or other antibiotics, and it doesn't work in chronic Lyme. It just doesn't. And in fact, hundreds, if not thousands of people have come to me now after doing traditional antibiotic therapy, and they're way worse. Their mitochondria look garbage. Their gut looks garbage. It's an absolute freaking mess. And so if you get bit acutely, would a 7-day doxycycline knock it out? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't prescribe drugs. So my bias is still going to be towards the natural herbs. And yeah, Tick Report is good. I interviewed that guy years ago. It was a pretty fascinating conversation because he told me that 51% of ticks in this country carry Lyme. So if you get bit by 2 ticks, you're pretty much going to win the lottery there. And then when it comes to Bartonella, Babesia, Anaplasma, ehrlichiosis, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, the ticks that contain the alpha gal, it was much, much less, like maybe 5 to 10% of those ticks carry those bugs, whereas Lyme was Borrelia burgdorferi, that's 51% of ticks. And there is some bioweapon stuff out there. The book Bitten, The Secret History of Lyme Disease and Biological Warfare, I would add that to your reading list for Christmas. I interviewed the author named Chris Newby, Kris. She documented she gathered all the declassified government documents from the 1950s in Colorado where they tested various diseases being injected into ticks. So one question a lot of people ask me now that have listened to that podcast and read that book is, Evan, do I have natural Lyme, which is like Otzi the Iceman, the Lyme from, thousands of years ago, or do I have a modern bioweapon lab created Lyme? The answer is we don't really know. There's no way to differentiate the strains, at least not that I'm aware of, but the herbs are still the same. So we're still going to use the same Lyme herbs and drops, whether it's a bioweapon or whether it's quote native Lyme. I know that's a crazy distinction to have to make, but this is a reality.
Yeah, and you can go read the book Lab 257 and you can go see the history of Lyme and how it came to be, how it was weaponized from people over in, let's just say in Europe around 1940-ish. And some of these people came to this country afterwards, right? You can Google
I forgot
Operation
about that.
Paperclip. You can Google Operation Paperclip and put the name Eric with a CH, Eric Traub, into the list. And you can find the words Plum Island and you can find the words Lab 257 and you can go down a crazy rabbit hole. But we'll keep it more clinical because in the end, it comes down to, well, what do we do about it, right? So we have acute Lyme, like Evan mentioned, right? And some of it, there's a man-made component, whether or not you want to go down that rabbit hole. Ticks have been used to experiment and be a vector for other conditions. And so we have other conditions like Babesia, Bartonella, Ehrlichia, Rickettsia. And so we want to use different herbs to kind of support that. So whether it's andrographis, astragalus, cat's claw, or cemento, whether it's turmeric, a long-term immune support may also be things like ashwagandha or reishi. If you look at any of Stephen Buhner's work, a lot of the things he likes are going to be your berberines and your artemisia combined, your cryptolepis. These are going to be excellent herbs. And so a lot of the gut clearing herbs that we use, there are going to be some Lyme synergistic herbs in there just in case. My philosophy when it comes to Lyme is I've seen lots of patients that have already been through the ringer. They've already seen people or they've already suspected that Lyme is an issue. I just work on treating the foundations. I make a little note, okay, Lyme, we'll come down to that. We'll come back to it, or we'll come back to mold as well. I always test the home if we're uncertain, because if they're living in a moldy home or they don't have good air filtration or they have chronic sinus stuff, we're always going to deal with that. But a lot of people who supposedly have chronic Lyme, we just do the functional medicine foundationals and we can get great results. And I think a lot of it is because, one, there's an overlap of the herbs that we use being supportive for Lyme, and also because 80% of the immune system's in the gut. And I believe a lot of people who become susceptible to Lyme are people that have dysfunctional guts. And so my thing is, if you can get the gut healthier, so much of any Lyme issue down the road becomes much better.
Yeah, I mean, look at me. I had H. pylori, I had parasites, I had mold, I had candida. So I had all these other
You're
factors.
crypto, right? So
Yep.
those things could be, because not everyone who gets Lyme or gets a tick bite develops even any issues, right? Most don't. And so then what's the variable? So is it because you have gut issues? Is it because you have gut and then mold as well, and your adrenals are fatigued and stressed? It's a combination of things, and a lot of times it's the perfect storm, and that's why people have a hard time. And I also see a lot of people, let's say in the ILADS community, these are people that are more conventional medicine people that put people on chronic antibiotics, like long term, like years and years and years. And I've seen that almost create more problems because
Yeah,
now
like
they're just
PICC lines.
destroying
I
their
mean,
gut.
they'll go to
Yeah.
the point of a PICC
Yes.
line, which is absolutely terrifying. And
Correct.
many of those people end up in $20 to $200,000 worth of medical debt,
Yes.
and they're no better when they come to us from those procedures. Even the EBOO, the oxygenated and ozonated type blood cleansing type things, it's not. I'm not seeing it move the needle at all. So if you go to a Lyme specialist, now granted, I would argue that you and I are somewhat of a Lyme specialist because we've had
Yep.
so much experience with it. However, that's not our only thing. And if you go to someone who you've used this analogy about hammers and nails and screwdrivers and stuff, which are great analogies. But the reality is, if you go to these Lyme specialists, they're probably not going to know about mold and they're not going to know about mitochondrial issues. They might just say, this is the recipe for Lyme. And if you don't get better, then they throw their hands up. And that sucks too. So you almost have to go to a generalist and a specialist like us where we can dive into not only the Lyme but the mold, the dysbiosis, all these other factors. Because for me, I've played with many different herbs over the years, and I still take herbs on and off for Lyme, but it was never a 100% single remedy. Like, I'm still working on mitochondria and brain chemistry and amino acids and inflammatory reduction stuff and peptides.
Yes.
Like, it's a Lyme tincture alone would have not fixed me.
Correct. And my concern is this: if you're going to do long term Lyme support, you have to be very careful of long term antibiotics, because a lot of the antibiotics that are used for Lyme, whether it's doxycycline or any of those families, the side effects of those antibiotics nearly match the side effects of Lyme. And so you become in this, well, is this chicken or the egg, right? Are we having side effects from the antibiotics, or are we going to just say, oh, no, let's just die off, keep going, keep going? And then you're in this vicious loop. Well, how do you know we're just having a side effect of the medication? And then also, how much are we destroying the immune system? We're down the road. Part of our issues now is our immune system is beaten up, and now we can't deal with any Lyme, where normally if our immune system was stronger, we'd be able to handle it. So my thing is, out of the gate, antibiotics may make sense acutely, but I think Evan and I tend to favor herbals because, one, they're safer longer term. They're not going to impact and negatively cause damage to the mitochondria, which a lot of antibiotics can. And they also create a lot of unwanted oxidative stress, where a lot of these herbals do have long-term antioxidant support, and they tend to have a little bit more safety in regards to less resistance long-term as well.
I want to caution people against Facebook groups, meetup groups, Lyme support groups. Those people may have good intentions in these groups, but there's a massively negative, pessimistic bias because a lot of those people in there are suffering. They hate the medical system. They hate doctors, yada, yada. Some people in there are going to be know it alls. Some people are just going to be wounded warriors trying to help people. but a lot of people get freaked out by these groups because you might post something like, "Hey, what do I do for my joint pain?" And you're going to get 700 comments from strangers on a Facebook group for Lyme. So I'm not saying don't do it. I think it's a helpful place to learn and get up to speed quickly on things that people have firsthand experience with, where doctors may not have firsthand experience with. But if you hire a provider to help you, you got to be able to trust them and let them hold your hand through this process and not try to get 700 strangers advice too, because a lot of people end up doing this and that. They do the DMSO and then they do the ozone and then they do the hyperbaric and they're doing 30 remedies, but they're literally just shooting at a dartboard and they're not using a targeted plan. Dr. J and I, our goal is to use the least amount of stuff in a targeted way to get you better. And we're not going to send you down 50 different rabbit holes. That's the whole point of a provider helping you, as opposed to going in these groups. So I was part of one years ago and I had to leave it. I'm like, this is crazy. There's a million notifications a day of these people's sob stories. It was just too much.
And what happens too is when someone comes chronically ill, their amygdala, brainstem, they become in the fight or flight and they become hypersensitive to everything. And I see a lot of people where they're going down these very nuanced protocols where they don't even have the guts or foundational things dialed in yet. And so when you start going down these crazy different protocols and the foundation isn't set, you're more than likely going to have a lot of side effects. And then what happens when someone does get some results, it becomes like the magic bullet. And the question is, well, why did that person get results? What about them and their overall treatment plan? Why did that make sense? Why did that help someone? And then a good practitioner is going to say, okay, now here's why. Here's what we should look for in you to make that treatment worthwhile. And so the problem is people don't think like that. They don't try to say, where does this fall within your treatment program? They just say, let's just do it. And so you don't want to just be throwing darts at the dartboard blindly. You really want to have a treatment plan and see where this plugs in with the overall plan, if it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's taken me years to feel like I've got on top of Lyme and the co-infections. I tested positive for Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella. So just for folks that are listening, there's a urine test that we can run. There's a good lab that does it. And the reason why we use a urine DNA sample, I'm open to others as well. I'm open to anything that gives us an answer. But we've seen some disappointing results using the typical blood antibody test. Because here's the deal. As you've mentioned already, this idea of immune stress. If you have a dysfunctional immune system, it's very possible that you're not making antibodies at the time of the test because Lyme is a stealth infection. It tries to evade the immune system. And so
Correct.
if you've tested negative via blood, the DNA urine doesn't care about your immune system. It's strictly looking for that organism showing up in the body after provocation, meaning sauna or some sort of exercise, and then collecting urine. I've seen literally hundreds, if not thousands, of cases where people tested negative with their conventional doctor blood, and then they did the urine and they showed up and we pursued it and they got better.
Correct. Yep. And so you're a bigger fan of using the urinary DNA, correct?
It's the best one. I think it's the most accurate. I'm open to the other ones, but I just find more good. It seems to just show false. IGenX and some of these other fancier ones,
Yes.
Armin Labs, I've looked at those too, and I still find the DNA urine to find even more.
Yeah. The big issue I have with some of those is everyone tests positive at some level. And so then it's like, well, if everyone's positive, then no one's positive, right? It becomes like a point of like, well, where's it helpful if everyone's positive?
Yeah, and the
And so as a
reference ranges are
practitioner,
quite confusing on those as well. Versus the DNA, it's either going to be a positive, it's going to be indeterminate, meaning the size of the organism was weird, or pretty much not at all. Where, like you said on the Armin, you could have three different reference ranges. It's like kind of positive, slightly positive, really positive. It's like, man, what do you do with that?
and that's what becomes really tough. And that's why with so many of these patients, I make a note. Okay, great. We're gonna table this. We'll come back to it, and we'll see how much better they get within the treatment program as we address all of the foundationals. Right? It's kind of like bowling. Okay, that's like the second row outside pin. Like maybe we've just hit the ball down the middle, everything knocks over, and those side pins get knocked over too. So that's kind of my thought. Now, if we're not getting results, or the let's say the needle's not moving, then we can always come back to that. Because remember, the gut is where 80% of the immune system is. And if you look at, some of the herbs that Stephen Buhner's recommended over the years, we talked about some of them here already. These herbs are going to have a massive benefit on the gut as well. So whether we're doing cryptolopis, whether we're doing alcornia, whether we're doing Sida acuta, Bidens, right? Whether we're doing Houtunia, right? Sarsaparilla. These are all herbs that have been around for a while. Andrographis, astragalus. These are all great herbs that have an impact on not just killing the microbes. We also want herbs that actually support the immune system. Astragalus supports the immune system. Reishi mushroom supports the immune system. Ashwagandha supports the immune system. So we want things that also support and tonify the immune system as well as the adrenal glands. And these people also tend to have depleted DHEA sulfate. So their adrenals are depleted. They're making less sex hormones. So they're more in a catabolic state, meaning they're breaking down more than they're building up. So if we could just start shifting physiology more to anabolic versus catabolic, it creates a major benefit.
Yeah, well said. And so, just to compare and contrast, that you made a great point, the catabolic nature of these infections. So, I lost 30 pounds without trying. I've told that story before. Many people with mold, they gain weight. Some people do get skinny due to the issue with the leptin receptors being blocked. But in the case of mold toxicity, I find a lot of people put on a bunch of weight by accident. With Lyme and co-infections, I find people lose a bunch of weight and get too skinny. So if you're having weight issues, you're having trouble with muscle mass, it's something we definitely will look at. And then I don't know if we hit on this much today, but dizziness and vertigo, that was a big one for me. So Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia can certainly get into the brain. So if you are struggling with chronic dizziness, this is also ramped up from the virus, from the injection, from long haul syndrome. So there's a lot of people having vestibular issues now, and they're going to physical therapy, which is great because you can do vestibular rehab exercises like this. So if you're listening on
Oh,
the audio,
let's
I
see.
would basically do these little trainings where you're following with your eyes. You try not to move your head. You try to just follow your eyes. I went to a physical therapist that taught me some of that stuff, and it was helpful, but it's not root cause. You're just trying to help your brain adapt to the dysfunction rather than getting the toxin out that's damaging your vision anyway. And funny enough, a Lyme test was run after an eye doctor saw me. So an eye doctor saw me because I thought I had vision issues. He said, "No, you're 2020 or even 2015." He said, "Have you looked into Lyme?" And I hadn't yet. And then I tested positive. I was like, "Holy crap. Thank God for this optometrist," because I didn't really make the connection. And since looking into it, yeah, floaters, little black spots, blurry vision, contrast issues. Lyme affects the vision significantly. So before you go run to getting glasses, look at Lyme.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What are some of your favorite herbs? I mentioned a couple here already. You have any specific herbs that you like to use specifically?
Yeah, the Atoba bark is freaking strong, but it works good. OTOBA, Atoba bark is amazing, but very potent. I love Japanese knotweed. It's helped me significantly. And I use a
Yep.
lot of red root also because at one point my spleen, so when you look down at yourself to your left side, your spleen's down there. I was very tender
Yep.
and the red root helped my spleen. So I
Yep.
love those. And then also I use what's called Campasandra, which is a bark that's really helped to knock the Bartonella down. And then you mentioned Hatunia, so I'll mix those.
Yep.
The Campasandra Hatunia combo is potent. And, I give this stuff to some of my kids too. So if you, just to quickly mention this also, if you, as a mom listening, if you have Lyme or co-infections, your kids probably do also. So you may want to check your kids out. Kids may experience different symptoms. They may have a pale skin tone. They may complain of their belly hurting. They may have headaches. They may have ADHD or ADD diagnoses. They may have PANS or PANDAS like symptoms, meaning sensory, OCD, bedwetting, anger, irritability, problems with putting on clothing. They may have food aversions. So your children may need to be looked at as well because Lyme does go through the placenta. So in a mother who didn't treat Lyme preconception, it's possible that your kid will be positive. I've seen tons of kids that are positive that have never had a tick bite.
Right. Yep. 100%. So it's good to have some good immune support on there. Even just a simple tincture, like just a simple cat's claw tincture can be very helpful because that's going to support the immune system. Even just a little bit of reishi mushroom can be very helpful. But again, a lot of these people I see, their diets are still very inflamed. I saw your Instagram video last week where you talked about using a tincture and seeing if you had any die-off symptoms. And I know you use I like tinctures in people that are sensitive because we can really microdose and increase to talk about the dosing scheme and how you adjust that dose and what you're looking for.
Sure. There's different brands. Some brands max out at about 5 drops as a max dose. Other brands can
Yep.
max out at around 60. So, and Dr. Nathan, in his book Toxic, which is a great book about Lyme and co-infections and mold, in his book, he talks about using this trial. Either if you don't have the budget for lab testing, or if your lab testing came up inconclusive and you're confused and you're still miserable, the idea is that you take a tincture that kills Lyme and you see if you get a reaction, good, bad, or different. Meaning, you and I are hanging out together. We're like, okay, here we go. Boom, squirt in 10 drops of this Lyme tincture, and then we track you. Did you get a headache? Did you get dizzy? Did you get diarrhea? Did you get stomach cramping? Did your joint pain move around? It went from your shoulder to your hip. Those reactions would indicate a positive result, meaning, okay, this guy had a reaction. Lyme might be there. If you take the whole bottle or a whole squirt and nothing happens, you probably don't have those infections. And so we can ultimately use your body as the test. The only downside to that is if you are a very sensitive person, you could have die off for potentially days after this. So you really want to work with a practitioner that's going to coach you on how to ramp this up so you don't just destroy yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's solid stuff out of the gate. And so, yeah, the nice thing about that is you can start with 20 drops twice a day as a goal, and just start with one drop in the morning, one drop at night, and dilute it in water, and just go slow and see how you do. I think that's a great way to do it out of the gates. But also, foundationally, make sure you're hydrated. Make sure your electrolytes are dialed in, because I see a lot of heart rhythm, heart rate. And so, if we don't have the good sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, we're not hydrated enough. Again, if your gut's all jacked up, we may even need some trial carnivore diets, even a trial elemental diet, just to kind of make things really easy to digest, cut down the inflammation, and just get nutrients into the system without a lot of digestive distress. That can be helpful.
Yeah, my system was jacked up, and you mentioned the amygdala. So one other component to this is the mental aspect, and you
Yep.
have to believe that you're going to get better. It's very easy to just self pity and think you're just
Hmm.
stuck forever. And I certainly had some of that because I was just feeling so bad. I thought, man, how am I ever going to get out of this? And that's hard. So I just encourage you that you have to believe that healing is possible. Now, some people ask about, well, can you fully cure this? If you ask 20 different practitioners, you're going to get 20 different answers about the word cure. I just focus on quality of life. If your quality of life is getting better and your symptoms are decreasing, to me, that's a win. Will you always test positive at some level? I don't know. It's tricky. What do you say to that question when people ask you?
Yeah. So what happens is when you have Lyme or other issues, it's not just the Lyme or the other co-infection that is the issue. And so I tell patients, it's like if you're driving around, you get a flat tire. You're like, okay, I got this flat tire. That's the root cause of what's going on. And you say, I'm going to just ignore this. We're going to drive around on this flat tire to the year. The symptoms start to get worse and worse. You're like, all right, I'm done. Let's just fix the underlying root cause, the flat tire or the Lyme, and things should just go away, right? Well, you get the flat tire fixed, new tires on, it's awesome. But guess what? Your car still drives like crap. Why? Because there's been collateral damage to other systems of the car. The front end, the axle, the suspension, the tires have worn unevenly, right? There's a lot of stress throughout the car. And now the root cause may have been the root cause. If you fixed it in the first week, it may have been fine. But because you created collateral damage over the years, now other systems are dysfunctional and you have to go around and start supporting other systems. So it's easy to be like, well, but that was the first shoe to fall. It's like, yeah, but now it's kind of spiraled out and other things have to be addressed.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good. Well,
And
yeah, I
that's where
saw what you.
functional medicine people come in. What's where functional med really comes in. You got to look at it.
I appreciate that. You gave me a link in the chat here for a blend. That's really cool. It's got salvia in there too, which I love. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Bidens,
Yeah.
yeah, Ceta.
Couple of herbs that Evan and I use. Some of the Buhner stuff's great. And then, even just if someone's really sensitive, we may just do a cryptolepis tincture or a cat's claw tincture. But again, it depends. If someone also lives in a very moldy home, I may prioritize getting the home a little bit cleaner first. Get a
Yeah.
good air filter, figure out why that's there. Is it just high humidity? Can we get a really good HEPA filter in there? What's going on, right? So that may be a bigger priority, because if the mold is jacked up and all that's there, then maybe that is weakening the immune system. And then now the Lyme's a problem. But now the Lyme may be a thing, but now when the mold's gone, the sinuses are better. They're not chronically congested. Now the immune system improves. Now the Lyme becomes like more of an artifact. It's not really the root issue.
I will tell you with 100% confidence, if you were treating Lyme in a moldy environment, you are going to spin your wheels.
Yep.
Trust
That's
me.
where you have to have a priority in regards to your philosophy of how you treat someone. And you don't ever, I don't dismiss patients. It's just like, okay, we're going to put that on that shelf, that on that shelf, and we'll come back to it if the program is not giving us the results we want over time. And I tell patients 5 to 10% improvement per month is what we want to be seeing on
Yeah.
average. And ideally, we continue to compound month after month after month.
Yeah. So if you need help, reach out to us. We're happy to get some of these labs ordered. And can we do some trials with herbs? Yeah. I mean, there are some places around the world where the international logistics and customs make it very difficult for us to do the Lyme and co-infection test. If you're in the US, Canada, most of Europe, we can get it done quite easily. But if you're in some of these far off places, I had a lady in Saudi Arabia. I'm like, I don't think we're going to be able to get that test to and from fast enough to the lab via, urine. So in those cases, we might just defer to the herbs and test it that way. But either way, let us know how we can help. You can reach out to Dr. J at justinhealth.com. We can help you with these issues. evanbrand.com is my website. And let us walk you through this thing. It's not an overnight fix. So just have some realistic expectation. As you mentioned, 5 to 10% improvement every month would be awesome.
Yeah, and if you're going to start with something, start with a single source herb, maybe a cryptolepis, or maybe a cat's claw slash cemento, or maybe just an astragalus, single source, and just get it maybe liquid or just a small dose and put it in a little water twice a day. And start there if you want something. But then if you're hitting your head against the wall, get a good functional medicine practitioner in your court, like Evan or I. Evan's website is evanbrand.com. Dr. J, justinhealth.com. We see patients worldwide. Feel free. You can click and reach out to our teams. We're happy to get a discovery call on the books for you or a new patient consult where we can dive in deep and figure out what makes the most sense for the next step in your plan.
Yeah. Well said, man. Don't give up. You just got to keep going. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got one life. You try to make it the best. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to just throw your hands up and be like, I'm done. I just don't have it in me. But you got to fight one more fight. So if you're listening, you feel like you're at the end of the rope. Trust me, I was there. I mean, the stuff I went through, I wouldn't wish upon anyone, and I got through it. So just know your body is pretty amazing at healing when you get the roadblocks out of the way. So Lord willing, we get all the testing done, we get all the data you need, and then we'll create a plan to help you.
I agree. That makes sense. Also, let's go over the lab. What's your favorite Lyme test again for looking at the actual microbes in the urine?
Right now, I'm using DNA connections.
That's the one I've been using too. I don't do it as much because I kind of have my protocol and how I do it, where
Yeah.
patients improve or not. But yeah, it's something that I have on my list, and we always come back to it if we need. I'll put a list of products that we typically use or would recommend in the description, link below. Evan could do the same. I typically don't recommend just self-treating when it comes to Lyme because it can create a spiral of side effects. And then, okay, well, it only really works in conjunction with a bigger overall plan. Like Evan said, if you have a moldy environment, it's going to be spinning your wheels. If you have a chronic gut or adrenal issue, it'll probably be spinning your wheels as well. So you want to get tests. So we want to assess, not guess.
Yep.
Awesome, Evan. All right, man. Great chatting with you today. Brother, we'll talk soon. You guys have an awesome day. If you enjoyed the podcast, descriptions down below. Love to see your comments. Support us. And you guys have an awesome day. Take care, y'all.
Take care now. Bye.